The first thing that I need to disclose to everybody that this recording or this presentation is being recorded for those that can't make it. We fully recognize that the month of August is very difficult for everybody in terms of vacation and startup. That being said, we wanted to make sure we could get this information out as soon as we could. We have October 1st as sort of the target to get some of this stuff in. So we wanted to give you as much lead time as possible. So this is about our call for partners. This is about our new College Student Success Innovation Center at Mohawk, which we're really, really excited about. The presentation today is going to be about really the call for partners. The focus is going to be on what do we need to do to make this project a reality and get as many people on board as possible. So the agenda today will be to review the details of the call for proposals briefly, to review what some of the external experts and support structures are, which was some of the questions that I've received so far, and then an opportunity for you to ask questions. And I'll talk to you about how we're going to do that a little bit later. So again, this is recorded. There's a chat function. If you send a message, I will see it. I've got it open on my other screen. It is being recorded so that we can share with colleagues after the fact. And if you want to, there's a raise hand function in there as well. If you have questions or whatnot, I'll try to answer some of those. The chat function is probably the best way to get my attention. So here we go. So for those that I have not met, my name is Tim Fricker. I'm the Dean of Students at Mohawk. I've been in this role only for about 1.5 years, but been at the college a little over 6 years, working in student success initiatives, focusing on this kind of work and a lot of the research we're going to talk about today. So a little bit of background about the center, and then I'll get into the call for proposals. So our vision is to, as best we can, to lead the province in the design, implementation, assessment, and evaluation of innovative interventions throughout the student life cycle that make an improvement to student success. We hope that the outcome of all of this work will be about generating a more collaborative, supportive college system that is informed by rigorous evidence about what works. The programs, the services, the interventions that we've tried, that we think if we can try on a broader population with the support of our partners, that maybe we'll have some generalizable evidence to suggest that we should all be doing this kind of work. So there's 3 things that are sort of the foundation of how we're going to do this. The first is about innovation. We're looking at practices that have already been tested, that are informed by evidence, that we think may have value to the broader population in colleges across Ontario. Second is capacity building. This has been, a 5-6 year journey for us doing research at Mohawk, where we have learned a lot. And that learning has been invaluable for the quality of our practice and what we've been able to do to support our students. And lastly, it's about knowledge sharing. So if we can build the capacity internally, we think we can build the capacity externally. The only way we do that is by sharing knowledge as broadly as we can. To give you a sense of the scope of the work that we've been doing, we were part of the Access and Retention Consortium with HECO that's had 2 funded projects. We had a few learning outcome projects as well that generated our previous funding. And then we currently have a handful of projects going on, from testing this idea of a psychologically attuned probation letter or academic standing letter, to testing an online goal setting intervention that we think can make a difference to academic performance, to trying to institutionalize learning outcomes assessment at a classroom level is another piece that we're working on. And then you'll see this project that the ministry's funded, where we're seeking partners to work with us to replicate something that we have already done. So we're going to try to repeat that, see if we have generalizable evidence. We're also working really closely with HECO, with the Hamilton Community Foundation, with McMaster and our local school boards to understand a little bit more about access and student success and what that means for getting more students into higher education and supporting their success. Really looking at those at-risk populations in our community and trying to share some data to see what we can learn through some broad data sharing agreements with these partners. So that's the work that we're doing right now. This project is certainly one of the most exciting, working with our college partners across the province. So what does this funding provide us? So the ministry funding, this was part of our strategic mandate agreement. They gave us the opportunity to put in an extra proposal because they liked some of our initial ideas. So what we asked for was annual sponsorship of a symposium that we would run, and anybody participating in this research would certainly be a part of. That a part of this is we would do a competitive call for partners where we would offer $30,000, provided that the college partner puts up $30,000, and that could be in kind or financial, to replicate an intervention we have already tested. That they would provide funding for us to put out an RFP to secure a research and data analytics partner that would coordinate the analysis, that would give us everybody some consultation and advice on how to structure this work and these experiments, and then would do the reports for us as the principal author. That RFP has been awarded. We're just in the final stages of signing the contracts. So we'll be able to announce that soon. And I can say it'll be a partner that would be familiar to many in the province. And then operational dollars for us to create some more positions on campus to help coordinate this research as well. So we've created a faculty role called a Student Success Research Fellow, and to add to our growing team in the center. So what I'm going to do now is just switch my screen here to the call for partners. So as I'm doing that, I'm hoping this works and everybody can still see everything. That part's important, obviously. So if a member of my team can just give me an A-OK to say that, yes, me switching my screen, you can still see, that's always helpful, because this is kind of a process where I do not get much external validation that you can hear me and that this is working. So this is the call for partners. I am assuming most of you have read it at this point. If not, you can find it online. I've given you the background of the center. We've talked about the vision and the objectives, what the funding has been, and how this will work. So, and we've talked about the outcomes. So the focus of this work, we've selected the proactive advising intervention. And that's with the advice of our expert advisory panel, or council rather. I'll talk to you about that in a moment. But this was a project we published through HECO funded, where we did a randomized control trial for all 6,000 incoming Mohawk students a few years ago. We split them up into 3 groups. The first group being a control group that in the months of July and August received new emails, just encouraging them to attend orientation, to meet their student success advisor, really just to welcome them to the college. That's the control group. Then there were 2 intervention groups. The first intervention group and the second intervention group had identical outreach. And the outreach was that same email with an encouragement, a strong encouragement, to come in to see an advisor before day one with the purpose of helping them get ready for day one at college. The first intervention group was offered one-on-one advising, and the second intervention group was offered group advising, small group advising. The agendas for that advising conversation or an experience were identical. The difference is the social interaction that happened in group. Proactive advising is about reaching out to students before they need help. It's about building relationships. It's about being positive and ensuring that the students get what they need. So that was our intervention. The emails went out 3 times, plus a follow-up phone call from a student leader if they had not responded. And then we tested for those that are stats people, the intention to treat effects, which is the entire cohort because they all received this proactive outreach and the advising, and found some pretty significant results. What was most interesting in the findings was that group advising made a significant difference. And one-on-one advising really did not. And when we're talking about the difference, we're talking about the difference in retention in the next semester. We also found that students that were more likely to be part of at-risk groups, or those that typically have lower retention rates anyways, had the greatest impact. And this is the exciting part about this kind of intervention, is that it supported men, it supported those in our access populations at higher levels, meaning it increased their retention more than other groups. So this was overall a really positive experience. Learning how to do this had a huge positive impact on our team, on the advisors themselves. We did a lot of learning. We learned how to standardize some of our advising. It was in many ways an opportunity to improve our practice. And so we think that this intervention is actually quite simple. It's the organization and the lead up to it that is difficult in terms of getting your campus on board, doing ethics, getting your practice in order, ensure you know how to do all the e-blasts, those kind of things. That's sort of the hard work, but the advising itself and the content of the advising was relatively simple. And the advisors themselves, you know, it really boosted their energy while we were asking them to do a little bit more advising than what they had done previously in the summer months in July and August. There was a spotlight on their work, and it was a positive one, and that had a really positive impact on the team as a whole. And the conversations we had with students and with parents alike who brought their students to the campus for these sessions was really positive. And you'll see some of that in our sort of the post-publication results as well, is that sometimes the students didn't even understand why they were coming in, but it was positive for them nonetheless. So that's the intervention. Here's the key deadlines that everybody should be thinking about. This webinar will be posted. People can watch it and listen to it again later. We have this idea of a last day to submit questions. So Bobby Jo Sachin, she's away today. She's on vacation, well-deserved. She'll be collecting any and all questions you have, and any question that one campus has, we're going to document them and send out the whole Q&A to everybody that has an interest. We're asking for your application form by October 1st, and then we're hoping that we can go back and forth. We can select the 3 colleges that our selection panel advises us to work with. And then get these partnership agreements signed so that we can really start all the ethics, the intervention design, implementation, data, anything we need to do that regard. We'll start in January. And then the idea would be around this time next year, the intervention itself would be concluded, because this would be sort of a July-August intervention would be the idea, because proactive advising occurs typically just before day one. That's not set in stone, but that's kind of the idea. We hope that this March, we're going to start with the symposium. There won't be a whole lot of results then, obviously, but we hope each March we will have a symposium that to share kind of our lessons learned about operationalizing a project, those kinds of things, and share it broadly. And then we'll be asking colleges to do an interim report and a final report on their activities, and our research and data analytics partner would be doing the same kind of reports from a research perspective. So the application process, we've got 10 questions, and we thought long and hard about these. And this is where we worked with our selection panel and with our expert advisory council. There's two groups that I'll talk about to make sure that we are getting all of the right points. Our experience applying for research funding through HECO has also informed some of this, to make sure that there's a really purposeful discussion happening on your campus, not just with your advising team, but with your senior administration, with your vice president, and with your president, to make sure that there is a broad commitment to this. And I will say that is important. The more support you have, the easier it is for you to get the project done, and the easier it'll be for all of us to work together. So we can talk about some of those questions a little bit later. And then the evaluation is two parts. So we have a selection panel. I'll tell you about them in a moment. But what they will do is they will evaluate the submissions. They will advise us on the best ones. We will then, as part of the secondary criteria, start looking at the makeup of the partners to ensure that we have a representative group. The research will be more powerful if we have, for example, a small, a large, and a medium college, that we have one from the north, from the east, from the south. Those kinds of things are important for the true generalizability of these findings, should there be any positive findings. And then as part of this, there's both, I think, this PDF form that you could use and a Word document. As long as you're answering the 10 questions in a succinct way, we've sort of put 250 words max for all of these, just so that we're not reading huge amounts. That's the idea. And we've also posted a sort of a sample data sharing agreement that is important. Our experience with HECO, when we were working with Ross Finney previously, and some of our work with Statistics Canada in ESDC, is that this part is critical to make sure that every partner has the capability to do this. So partnering with your corporate reporting or institutional research office, your registrar's office in some ways, or in some circumstances, is really important to make sure that everybody's on board and understands how this data is pulled, how it is transferred, how it is stored, kept secure. We have a lot of confidence in this process, and so confident that Stats Canada also endorsed this kind of process a few years ago when we worked with them. So I can say there should be nothing to worry about, but there may be things that that your campuses may want to ask questions about and understand further. So that's a call. I'll keep this up on my screen for when folks want to ask questions. I said a few times that we were going to talk about the team and these panels and councils that are working with. And this is important to us in terms of the selection of our partners. So we have a research partner selection panel, and we will be announcing the names of those folks within the next week or so you'll know who those individuals are. Their job is to provide guidance on the content of our call, to help us create the evaluation criteria, and to evaluate partners. We do not want to be the ones that are owning that decision. We'd love to work with all of the college partners and anybody that's interested, but they'll advise us on the ones that seem to be in best shape and ready to do this kind of work. And so I encourage you to write it very much to that group who are not employees of our college. These are external folks from prominent organizations in higher education that have experience doing this kind of work and similar work that will evaluate things. So the research selection panel, they're really focused on that kind of transactional piece and advising for us. The Expert Advisory Council, they're advising us, again, of similar stature, retired deans and vice presidents and whatnot, and expert researchers that are providing good guidance to us to make sure that this center is sustainable after the first 3 years of funding runs out from the ministry. But they're also going to coach and advise all of you. So if you're involved in the project, they will be actively participating at symposiums and those kinds of things. And so when it comes time to publish or to write opinion pieces about the work that's happening, they're going to help with some of that too. And then there's the research and data analytics partner. This will be an organization that is really familiar with data transfer of this kind of research and can crunch the data. They know statistics really well and has a really strong publishing record, which will help each partner get the story out to those that need to learn about it. So, and they will be involved in all of the decisions around methodology and the implementation as well to ensure that we're doing things in a right way. The idea is if we're going to run a randomized control trial, let's do this properly, ethically, in a way that that really gives us the best opportunity to learn what we hope to learn about advising in this intervention. So I think at this point, I'm going to turn to some questions. And this is where I'm going to see if I can unmute the lines. That could be tricky. Or if you want, you can go in and I believe there's an opportunity to raise your hand. So if you raise your hand using the platform, I will see that and then I can unmute your microphone should you have one. And you can ask a question. You can also type a question in your chat window and I will try to answer it. But apart from that, that's sort of the presentation to give you just sort of a high level view of the work so far. So does anybody have any questions? I'm going to type something here and see if you can see it. What specific student data do you expect to collect from participating colleges? So that's a very good question. What we have collected for the most part, so first of all, we do not collect any identifiers. So you may have a group of participants that you are keeping track of. And you, as a college, will know the names, first names, last names of those students and their student numbers. Before you send anything to us via our research and data analytics partner, your institutional research office will anonymize that data. So they'll probably apply a new temporary ID that they can link back if they ever have to. And with that temporary ID or this sort of pseudo ID will be sort of male, female, and so we'll get gender, we'll get age, we should look at, often we'll talk about program of study, and a bunch of demographic data basically. We'll need to know their GPA, we'll need to know if they attended advising or the intervention or not, so which group were they in, control or one of the target groups. So there isn't a huge amount of it. So there might be 10 or 12 variables kind of thing. And then we'll send it over to actually you'll send it directly to our research and data analytics partner. They will combine all of the data using all the pseudo IDs, and then clean it and start churning it. I'm hoping that answers your question, Debbie. Is there anything else that you wanted me to address further? Does anybody else have any questions? I have temporarily unmuted everybody, so if anybody wants to speak up, let's see if this works. So Chantel's asked a question. I take a replication of the intervention would be intended for summer 2019. That is correct. So the idea would be between now and let's say July of next year, it's about getting everything ready, getting partnership agreements signed, figuring out what the data is going to look like, how's it going to operationalize, how may it be slightly different at your institution versus how we designed it at Mohawk, and there has to be some flexibility from us on that. But the idea would be July, August is usually the best time. If we wanted to be ambitious, we could try to run this in December before your new students show up in January, but I don't think we would be able to get all of our ducks in a row by then. So I think the focus is next summer. There's another question from Debbie here. Were there any concerns raised about different student assignments to the different interventions from equal opportunity perspective? Not really, and I guess that's the thing about a randomized control trial. And the philosophy we've used with this is that if we're going to do this kind of research, we're going to do it as broadly as possible. So we're not necessarily just picking a small group of students and targeting them. We're trying to make it available to everyone. And so everyone gets something. So there's something new for everyone. We don't know if it's going to be better than the intervention itself. So using a healthcare analogy, the idea is obviously to do no harm, and it's just we're adding to or enhancing regular care. We're enhancing what is already standard practice. So from a equity perspective, that's perfectly legitimate. It happens in healthcare research all of the time. What we're doing is just providing an enhancement to a service, and then we're testing if that enhancement makes a difference. And then the randomization makes it as fair as possible. We will show you how to take your Excel spreadsheet of all your students, how to put a little formula to it that randomizes a number, and that number will put them into one of either the control or treatment groups. And that's how we make sure this is the most fair way to do this as possible. Question from Paulette, is the content of the sessions prescribed, or would the partners follow their usual advising practices? I think this is a good question. I think the partners could discuss this sort of together. And I think some combination of what we've prescribed and what your usual practice is necessary. The idea of proactive advising would be the same for the most part, but what happens in that session, the way we designed it, was quite organic to the needs of the student. So our agenda was, hey, let's introduce ourselves. What's the one question you have that you wanted answered today? And to us, that was the most powerful piece. And let's write those down if there's multiple people in the group. And then our basic agenda was to review registration materials and financial aid materials and just make sure that they have everything set up that they need to have set up before day one. And if they don't, let's just walk them through it. So it's a really basic advising session content. So if there's other things that you wanted to do that was part of your usual advising, I don't necessarily see that as a problem. I think it's a good conversation for the group to have as a whole to make sure that it's in alignment with the principles of proactive advising, and it's information that students need at that point in time. Next question, what is the way to pick the students? So that's randomized. So how do we pick students into the 3 groups? It'll be absolutely random, meaning you select your target population. For us, it was all first-year students. For you, it might be all first-year students in business. But we want to go for a big group possible, because for the analysis, the bigger the group, the greater the significance of the results potentially, statistically. So it's random. You take your students, you put them into an Excel spreadsheet, you throw a formula into it, and it will tell them if they're in group 1, 2, or 3. And that will assign if they're in control or intervention. And the size for each group. So the way we did it is we had roughly 6,000 incoming students, and we assigned the groups equal sizes. So we had 2,000, 2,000, and 2,000. And that was the easiest way for us to select them. Question from Christy. The advising model at Fleming is quite unique. Faculty coordinators provide the service. We could either use the intervention with this group, or could use this as an opportunity to review or change our model. Do I have any thoughts or suggestions? I think we could certainly have a conversation about that. When I put this in place at Mohawk, this intervention, we used it as an opportunity to change our practice. This proactive advising in the summer months was something that we had all talked about doing, but we couldn't get there. So we requested some money to help us do it. And because the research, in order for it to work, we all need to follow a prescribed sort of process. The advisors all got involved. And I think they would all admit that they were a little bit reluctant. They were nervous about doing extra work in the summer. They were worried about response rates and participation rates. But it turned out to be one of the most positive things that we've done as a team. And this practice is continuing for us still. So this could be an opportunity to change something, Christy. It could be the opportunity to enhance it with your current model as well. But happy to chat about that offline. Folks, you're doing a great job asking me questions on the chat function. This is working well. I haven't seen anybody use the raise hand function, so that's fine by me. As long as the chat function is working for everybody, that's great. Feel free to ask a few more questions. As I'm waiting to see if a question comes in, what I can say is just to remind everybody, if you have questions after today on the call for partners, Bobby Joe's email is there. If you were to email her, she'll collect all of the questions and make sure that they're available with the answers to everybody. And we'll send those out regularly. The other part is we'll be announcing who our research partner, data analytics partner is shortly, as soon as that contract is signed. And we will be announcing who the selection panel and expert advisory council are as well, so that people know who's going to be around to support them and who's advising us. So another question just came up. Any suggestions about internal partnerships team that helped to set up the intervention? I would say first and foremost, I had no idea how deep the collaboration and partnerships needed to go until we did them. So for us, we needed to have a really strong relationship with corporate reporting and institutional research. That reports through our Vice President Corporate Services. And so right through that chain of command, everybody was supportive, including our president. So when the president says yes, your vice presidents will say yes, and that'll move right down to the folks that are pulling the data. So that's critical. You absolutely need to have all of your frontline staff supporting, and advising is something that often lives at the intersection of both academic and student affairs. So having your partners in the academic area, your chairs or associate deans supportive of this is really, really important. And then student services, where a lot of this work, at least in our world, lives, you need the broad support there. So from the advising teams to the faculty to corporate reporting, you'll need all of those partnerships. The question was, when we announce who these partners will we be putting it through the original email distribution list, or will we be doing it on our website? We're still discussing how we want to put that out. I've been sending out the announcements through the HOSA listserv. I'll most certainly do that. I'm sure Wayne Poirier will also put it through the Vice President Students listserv. I'm not sure if our president will put it through the Committee of Presidents. That's how we've been announcing this for the most part. But we absolutely will be putting it on the website, and you'll see it as well. And if you are on LinkedIn or Twitter, I'll be putting it there as well to make sure that everybody knows. Fair question about a French language. We're going to do our best to make sure that we can get documentation and surveys and things to translate. We may need a little bit of assistance with that, so we'd be happy to accept any advice that you have. So should you put in an application and we're and partnering that way, we'll do everything we can to translate and figure that out. Any other questions, folks? Okay. I'm available for questions should you have any. The best route is through Bobby Joe, because then any question that goes through there, we will document and send out. Please watch for some announcements on our website. The last thing I'll do is, if I bring up the website again, the background and history of what we're doing is in the About section. And all of our current projects and partners are also listed here. And so if you want to see how proactive advising worked, you'll see it actually at the bottom of the recently completed projects page. If you click on it, it'll take you to the HECO website and the summary and the research documents. You'll find similar stuff in the publication and resources. That includes some of our personal work. All of the upcoming events and activities is sort of a timeline of things going on is there. And then any news that comes out, you will find it here as well. So thank you for so many people participating today. I think there's a list of about 21 or so. And at my first count, there was 11 colleges represented, which I think is amazing. And I'm really looking forward to seeing your applications and happy to chat with people further should you have any questions. And then when we get this posted, again, look at the news site on the website. We'll make sure that the recording is live, okay? With that, I'm going to end the meeting. Thanks, everybody. You've got 15 minutes before your 2 o'clock, assuming you have one then. So take care and enjoy what's left of your summer.